supply chainers, wherever you are in the world. This is Sarah Barnes-Humphrey with you today. Are you ready? Let's talk supply chain. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Thoughts and Coffee. My name is Sarah Barnes-Humphrey. I'm the founder and host of Let's Talk Supply Chain, as well as the Blended podcast, and also the founder of the Blended Pledge. And we're going to give you an update and some news on Blended in just a little bit, because we were part of an event last week in Chicago, and we raised some funds, which I'm super excited to talk about. But before we do that, we do need to talk about our sponsor. So Emerge is proud to partner with Thoughts and Coffee to elevate our combined focus on empowering and growing meaningful relationships in the freight industry. The first and only freight-specific RFP platform, Emerge is reinventing freight procurement by offering solutions that enhance the spot and contract procurement process, enabling shippers to make the most strategic decisions possible, saving invaluable time and enhancing productivity. Learn more at emergemarket.com/thoughts and coffee. All right. Well, we need to talk about what's happening at Let's Talk Supply Chain right now. So let's dive in and get started. So this week's episode, I recorded on site at Home Delivery World back in August, and I sat down with Pacurate. Now, they are doing some really incredible things for the industry in the packaging side of supply chain. And they're using technology to really create sustainable options for you and your business. And so we dive deep into their founder story. We talk about what exactly it is that they do. Plus, we talk about how they can exactly help you with your packaging needs and make sure that you're hitting your sustainability goals. So it's episode 297, either on letstalksupplychain.com or the Let's Talk Supply Chain YouTube page, or wherever you subscribe to the show. So definitely go and check that out. What have we got? We've also got LogTech Live happening this Friday. AJ, can you put the link in the comments to LogTech Live so that everybody can go and click that attend button? He's talking about how forwarding technology can evolve with other industries. Now, I'm really looking forward to this one. It's at 10 a.m. Eastern on Friday morning. Plus, this is the event that I wanted to talk to you about. So Audrey and I were part of the Redwood Logistics Woman in Logistics event last Thursday in Chicago alongside Charlie Safro, Elise Lay, and Hillary Drake. And we really dove into their journeys. We talked about what it's been like to be a woman in logistics. Plus, Redwood picked the Blended Pledge to be the charity of choice that night. And so we raised over $5,600. And so we're really going to be able to make more of an impact. You guys know we've already given away 2 grants so far, and we're going to be opening up applications again so that we can give away more grants by the end of 2022. What else is happening? Oh, I wanted to let you guys know that we have, or just remind you that we've got Let's Talk Supply Chain on TikTok. Abby's doing a great job of really portraying what it's like to work in supply chain. So definitely go and check that out. If you're on TikTok, go and follow Let's Talk Supply Chain. And what else do we have going on? Oh, we've got some new merch that I wanted to share with you. We've got some new tote bags, just another easy day in supply chain. We've got Diversity Matters, like this shirt in supply chain, and the proceeds go to some of the proceeds go to Blended, which I want you guys to know about as well. And what else have we got? We've got a red I like to move it sweater. That is because of Davin. Davin wanted a red one, so we definitely did that. And we've got some new branded sweaters as well. So just wanted to let you know, because obviously the holidays are just around the corner, and we want to make sure that you can deck out your favorite supply chainer. All right, now it's time to bring up my guest for today. Hello, Audrey.
Hi.
How you doing?
Gosh, long time no see, Sarah.
I know. We spent 3 days together in Chicago, and we had a lot of fun. We went to see the Bean. I got to see the Bean.
Yeah. And I mean, you really went to see the bean because we were committed to seeing the bean and had to wait in some security line. There was a whole like confusion, like that, like there's a line to get it. Okay, so you have to check my bag and like pat me down, and security want me. Okay, so
Yeah, it was really like going through airport security just
yeah,
to get into Millennium Park. It was interesting, not
it
gonna
was
lie.
interesting, man. Yeah.
All right, so for anybody who doesn't know you, let's do a quick
Okay.
introduction, and then we're going to get into the poll of the week. Plus, I want you to do a bit of a market update and let us know what's happening in your side of supply chain.
Oh, okay, for sure. So I'm Audrey Ross. I'm here in Toronto. It's a sort of looks like a gray. It's cold for sure. And I'm the import and export compliance manager at Orchard Custom Beauty, which is a private labeling company. We specialize in business to business sales in cosmetics, beauty tools, and bath accessories. So I guess I haven't said that in a while. I'm a bit rusty.
So you are a little bit frozen on my screen. It's a great picture of you. I'm not sure what's happening with your Wi-Fi, but just to let you know.
Nothing. I can
Well,
hear you perfectly.
well, you're frozen on my screen. Okay. Hopefully it unfreezes soon. Davin says,
Yeah.
good morning, Audrey. And
Hey, Devin.
thanks for joining us. So what were your thoughts on Chicago before we dive into everything?
Okay, so Chicago, one, it's a great town. It's a great trip. If you do get the chance to go and visit, definitely do. We had a fantastic experience with Redwood Logistics. They're obviously super committed to making change in the industry and really, really letting people bring their whole selves to work. I had a fantastic conversation after the event with their CEO Mark, and really the whole team is on board for this event, and that's great to see when you have a company that it's like everyone's kind of come together, everyone's supporting the event, everyone's just really going that extra mile, as it were, in transportation. So yeah, it's a great event, and of course the guests. Like it was such a treat to meet, Charlie Saffro, who I'm sure quite a few of us follow, and to meet her in person, to meet Elise Lay, Hillary Drake, and shout out to Hillary because she's offered some great insights on some of the struggles that I've been having, and just really was like,
Mhm.
so right off the bat, just super supportive and super friendly. And then and getting to meet Abby too, because Abby, TikTok Tuesday, Abby stopped by, so I was like, a little fangirling over one of the LTSC crew. So yeah,
Well,
great trip, great event, and yeah.
yeah, that was the first time that I got to meet Abby in person. So you're still frozen. I don't know if you want to try to refresh and come back.
Okay.
Totally up to you. But that was the first time that I was able to meet Abby in person. And so I was really, really excited about that. We got some pictures together. And then again, just so everybody knows, we were able to, there we go, you're back. We were able to get some donations. So Redwood decided to choose Blended as their charity of choice. And we got some individual donations through the GoFundMe. And then Redwood Logistics were just working out the details, but they're also going to be donating a large sum to the Blended Pledge as well, so that we can help more people, which I'm super excited about. So just want to give a huge thank you to them, shout out to them for choosing the Blended Pledge. And just so everybody knows, like, you can choose charities and do some philanthropy around some of the events that we're doing, so that we can make more of a difference through some of the nonprofits that we have available. All right.
And can we get people's help on our Blended, because we're almost at 500 followers on our LinkedIn. We're so close. Thanks to everyone who I personally invited. It wasn't spam, like it was me. And then we're so close to like $10,000 in Blended Pledge. So if anyone's sort of thinking, October gratitude, that's a place to start.
Okay, go to our GoFundMe. I'll have AJ put the link in the comments. And then, yeah, we've got Blended page on LinkedIn. We're almost at 500. So if we can get any sort of help, any little bit helps us, and we would absolutely appreciate that. All right, let's get to the poll. So the question we asked you: the world's supply chain is still disjointed and unstable. Which technological approach do you believe is best for connecting it? 56% of you said automated process system, 19%. So we have a tie for second place, both at 19%, machine learning actions and operative systems. And then 7% said others. So when you saw this, Audrey, what was your go-to? Did you go straight to automated process, or did you think about machine learning?
That's tough. I mean, I think I gravitated to automated process, maybe because I have a bit more understanding of what that means.
Well,
So, I'm not the most advanced on some of these new technologies that are coming in. So,
mhm. Well, and I think it's really important. I think one of the things that we've talked about for a long time is that not everybody has their data house in order. So that's
yeah,
number one. We
that's
really need
key.
to get the data. We need to be able to use it properly. What's good data? What's bad data? How are we processing? How are we using it? But
Yeah.
then I think really importantly is that we need to take a look at our processes. There's a lot of people still doing manual processes. And so what does that look like and how can we change it?
And I
Right?
just read something that was like, how many of us are doing processes just because that's how it's always been done?
Yeah.
And maybe 4 years ago that worked. And then now in 2022 and beyond, it's like, oh, wait a second. Why are we doing that? Do we need to do that? Who's yielding a result from this? It might be no one, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and so I agree with the majority is that we need to get our processes in order, get those automated so that we can start doing other things and be creative and innovative. So we had a couple of people comment. Halia says applying the concepts of circular economy, circularity, creating regenerative flows in both closed loop chain and open loop flows. Wow. That is a mouthful, but a really, really, really great point. Sean says unified planning systems, not simply businesses owning the individual systems under one roof, but actually having those systems communicate with each other. Jack says people. And we had some really great comments from Robert. Systems are a force multiplier, but the real solution is two solid processes.
Mm.
Somebody said metaverse. But from what I'm hearing, they have really low numbers. So I'm not entirely
Yeah.
sure that could be an answer, but maybe in the future. All right. Let's get you to talk a little bit about a market update. So what's happening in your world? What are you seeing with air freight? What are you seeing with ocean freight? What are some of the challenges coming up for you at the moment?
Yeah, so air freight from Poland to Australia specifically is very expensive, and I feel personally targeted by that. Uh, and shipments into the US are moving much better than they had been earlier in the year. A lot of us can see costs are coming down. Yeah, Davin emphasizes such a great point. Um, Stuff coming into other areas, like I found my stuff going into Rotterdam and into Europe is moving fairly quickly. It can be a bit challenging to find truckers, but that has been evening out. Especially when you're not doing it last minute and you're a little bit more organized. And then the sort of disaster area, the congestion area right now, is two. We're seeing another lockdown in China for COVID. So that is some in a region around sort of an iPhone factory. So we are still feeling the effects of sort of regional issues impacting your global value chain. And then Canada, of course, there's been no let up in the congestion and just worst conditions I've ever seen at rail terminals, getting stuff moved out of rail terminals, getting containers moved onto rail. Like the timing that I'm getting now is it's about 5 weeks to 6 weeks to get to Vancouver, where the vessel will sit. Because the transit time's really only 3 weeks. The vessel will sit for at least 2 weeks, and then it is literally a month between Vancouver and Toronto right now.
What?
It used to be an 8-day train ride. It's a month.
A month.
So
And
a month.
so
So now you're planning to come into Canada right now via China is 14 weeks. So,
wow, that's a really long time. Are they saying
yeah.
it's because of labor? Like, is it labor shortages? What is it?
There's no identifiable issue. And I think that's a problem because no one is really able, when we saw the disaster conditions from the natural disaster last November, it was very specifically like, okay, this road is out. What do we do? We're going to reroute through the US. This train line is out. What are we going to do? We're going to share lines. And there's just no overview, no oversight, no responsibility. It's just like so many compounded issues. It seems to be the congestion at the rail. It seems to be a labor shortage and people and co-loaders being able to offload containers and get them back into the cycle so that trains can get offloaded faster and turn back to Vancouver. But that's sort of some of the comments that I'm getting, and nothing concrete or sort of official.
So Bayram has a question. What is the impact of energy crisis in Europe this winter for transportation and supply chain in global?
Well, we can imagine that they've already started asking people to prepare to not have their heat on that much. So we can only speculate that fuel is going to be a premium. And so that will affect the availability of your deliveries, because there might be trucks and transport companies just unable to access the fuel that they need for the routes that they have. And then, of course, that will drive the price up. So the anytime there's capacity issues, we see the price go up. So it's going to be a lot more expensive to ship in Europe. So, which is already not a really like discount market either.
Exactly. So if you have any questions, you can drop them in the comments. I do want to give a shout out to Francisco from Costa Rica and Sylvester from Nigeria joining me over on my personal LinkedIn. But now it's time for us to get into these supply chain topics. So the first one I wanted to bring up. Now, I don't know if you guys shop at Shein or you know somebody that shops at Shein. They are a fast fashion giant out of China, I believe, and they're aiming to cut emissions by 25% by 2030. Now, my question is that too late? I mean, we're going into 2023. That's still 7 years away. And in 2021, they're reported to have made 6.3 million tons of carbon dioxide emissions. And so what they've done is, and actually it's interesting because they quote their global head of ESG talking about their entire supply chain. So if we don't think that the departments or that supply chain has an impact on the rest of the business, that is definitely not true, especially when they are quoting this guy as the head of ESG on how their supply chain is really impacting their sustainability goals. So they want to focus on supplier emissions. They want to do an energy saving program for 500 of their partner facilities. Now that's only going to reduce it by 1.25 million out of 6.3 tons. And so my question to you, Audrey, when you saw this article, you're in fashion, you're also in supply chain. What did you think about this? Is it too late? Is it too little too late? Is there more that can be done? I mean, is the supplier focus the right way to go? I don't know. What do you think about this?
Yeah, Shein's a behemoth, and I've just been seeing it all over the people who I follow in fashion and in sustainable fashion. So you've got your experts like Aja Barber and Cora Harrington just dropping, all sorts of insights on what that report meant. And some of the report, like we can talk about emissions, we can talk about sort of the green and climate aspect of it. But part of the climate action is also social justice. And Shein is well known for not paying their workers. So these are like exploited, absolutely barely minimal paid workers that they have working there. So it's good to see, they're going to bring their emissions down. But there's a whole lot of other items on the to-do list for them. So, is it too little too late? I mean, they load like 100 new items a day or something. And it feeds into the worst of our sort of consumer and capitalist tendencies. And so I don't see, like, okay, you've reduced your emissions, but you've spent the last 5 years dumping product into the market. How's that going to be upcycled, reused, processed?
So, in saying that, they have just announced that they're going to do a recycling program where you can actually take product back if you're not using it, et cetera, et cetera. So they are going to do a recycling program. They're also talking about reshoring. So manufacturing is going to move to Indiana, LA, and Washington. And one of the biggest challenges that they say in controlling your sustainability efforts and your ESG goals is because a lot of times in retail or in fashion, you can really only control the first tier, which is the finished good. So, what about the second? What about the third? Really, at the end of the day, if we want to get some results in sustainability, we're going to have to map out the total supply chain, and
Yes.
everybody's going to
Yeah.
have to take responsibility for
Yeah.
each section of the movement of goods. And when we talk about sustainability and we talk about some of these programs and how they're going to reduce the emissions, that's great. They're going to reduce it by 25%. Awesome. But there's a lot of other areas within ESG that, we don't want to detract from, and we do have to talk about it as a whole.
Yeah.
So how are you going to do that? You're going to do that with your partner facilities. Well, is that your second tier? Is that your third tier? And how much of those partner facilities actually, you know, how many do you actually have? Is 500 half? Is it a third? Is it a quarter? Like, what are we looking at? Right. And so I think we need a little bit more information. And it'll be interesting. I think we're going to do a poll to find out how many people actually buy products based on the sustainability programs of the companies that they're buying from.
Yeah.
But you and I were having this conversation the other day, and you were just like, we need to do this like now. Like, we don't
Yeah.
have any more time to wait. And so
No.
that's why I asked you, right? 2030. Too long?
Well,
Too
and
late?
Shane's having a conversation in the year 2022 that like other people were forced to have in 2017, 20 like H&M's had their recycling program 3 years ago, 2 years ago.
Mhm.
DHL's been talking about emission reduction since 2015, 2014. Like, I don't know, like get on it if they're going to do it.
Mhm. Absolutely. All right. So let's get to our next one. So this one is interesting. This one has to do with
Yes.
manufacturing as well. And the FDA is redefining healthy food. Now, I don't know if you knew this, but in 1994, when they came out with the term healthy, it was actually because of the fat content within the food. So sugary cereals could actually be deemed healthy, but salmon and avocado, because of their fat content, even though it was healthy fat, were not deemed healthy. And so now they have updated what they're actually doing and what they're actually calling healthy. And they're trying to figure out from a manufacturing standpoint and a packaging standpoint whether they want a health food or a healthy symbol, or how they want to let the public know whether a product is healthy, deemed healthy or not. And now it actually means that they are focused on the fact that at least one of the food groups or sub food groups are contained in a particular food, which is great, and it's got to fall under limits of sugar, sodium, saturated fats, um, and that nuts and seeds would not count towards saturated fats. And so I bring this up because obviously this is going to change manufacturing in the food industry. And I'm actually going to be talking to Gary of Trace Gains next week about data, supply chain, the food supply chain next week. And so I wanted to just start off maybe thinking about that conversation going into next week, talking about the manufacturing of food products, because it is such a big deal. Everybody is looking at what they're eating, how they're eating. And it's really going to make a big difference. What did you think about this, Audrey?
I thought it was great. I think it's in a lot of cases food labeling and is overdue. It's again an area where we might have looked at the sort of surface level product or surface level items and not really delved into the full effects. And I think we're seeing a lot more research in this space as well. So you're able to have more quantitative data on what the situation is. So it's a good place to move forward.
So Bayram says, how can we connect the battle of sustainability with health food? That is a really good question. And actually, I do a lot of webinars with the Canadian Health Food Association. And so I am definitely not the expert on this. I think a couple of areas that we need to concentrate on with food. And Bayram, I would highly suggest that you come back next week, because Gary from Trace Gains is really going to be able to answer this question. It's going to come with technology. It's going to come with data. It's going to come with being able to trace origin. It's
Yeah,
also going to come with packaging.
yeah,
Packaging is a big problem in food,
yeah,
and it's also going to come with recycling, or what we do with the the remnants of food
Yeah.
and the circularity of that. And so
Yeah.
just my overall, I'm not an expert on this, but just my high level thoughts on
We
that.
eat, so
We do have a lot of waste, though. We did a blog
yes.
on this a couple of years
Yeah.
ago. So if you go to
Yeah.
letstalksupplychain.com, there
Yeah.
is a blog in there by Naomi who talks about sustainability and food and the waste and how supply chain actually contributes to that. So I would highly recommend going to check that out. All right. So our last article is, and this one's right up your alley. This one's
Mhm.
about the FMC and how they're proposing to define unreasonable export rejections by ocean carriers. Now, this one is really interesting because during the pandemic, we saw that containers got rolled. We saw that empty containers were being shipped on vessels to go get more product to bring over to North America because the surge in demand. And now
Mhm.
the FMC is really looking for public comment. So they're looking for your opinion on how to figure out unreasonable refusal by the carrier. So you go to the carrier, you ask for space, you have a container, and they say no, or they say yes. What's the unreasonable expectation of a refusal so that we can go back to the carrier, we can go back to the FMC and say, look, my container got rolled for unreasonable refusal, and then you can go after the carrier for that. What do you think about this? Because before, I think it was that it fell to the shippers to actually prove unreasonable export, and now it's shifting to the carriers and they have to prove it.
It's a very complicated situation. Oh, I like that comment from CM about kosher food.
Mhm.
There we go. It's just, yeah. I don't know if it's a situation where, we're expecting that we're going to start seeing at least more blank sailings, and so this, doesn't necessarily address that piece. Um, but like it's important for the shipper to it's like you're expected to leave all this time, right? Like, and we're stuck moving away from just in time supply chains because the availability and the reliability of this has not been consistent.
Right.
And so hopefully these new rules will help shift the burden because shippers sort of have a lot of burden to sort of act, and they're not as an associated group as the carriers. So, I'm optimistic, but
Well, I think a couple of interesting things that came out of this article is that shippers in good faith have to attempt to secure vessel space. And what
mhm,
that means in good faith is more than one communication. So you have to reach out to the steamship line or the carrier more than one time to be acceptable as in good faith. The
right.
other one is that they don't want the carriers to be able to prioritize shippers. So if there's a bigger shipper that is giving them more money and taking up more space, they don't want them to prioritize those shippers over the small shippers. And they're also saying that they cannot ignore attempts by shippers to get a hold of them, which I didn't even know was a thing, but apparently it's happening. And I
Hmm.
guess that's happening when they're prioritizing shippers. So there's a few interesting details within this article that goes into how things are actually being done and what particular things the FMC is looking at. But I think the biggest takeaway from this is that they are looking for public opinion.
Yeah.
So they do ask you to reach out and give them some thoughts on what you think about this. And that is huge, right? Because we want
Mhm.
to have a voice. We want to be able to be part of those conversations. And they're asking us to be part of those conversations. So I highly recommend that you go ahead and do that. Now, we
Yeah.
don't have any time left, but I do want to go over some of the events that we're going to be at. So I'm going to be at Procurement Foundry Forge in Las Vegas, November 2nd through 3rd. Hopefully, I'll see you there. I'm also going to be keynoting the Woman in Supply Chain Forum in Atlanta, November 8th and 9th. Reuters has the Logistics Technology USA Conference, November 15th through 16th in Austin. AJ, if you can put the link in the comments to this post so everybody can register, that would be great. Manifest is coming up at the end of January. I'm going to see you there as well. And then, of course, we've got all of our live shows that happen on a weekly basis to bring you all the insights and information about supply chain. Anyways, thank you so much to everybody for joining us this week. Remember, I'm going to be back with Gary from Trace Gains, so bring all of your questions. And Audrey, thanks for joining me